So I finally got to the Eclipse Celestial Spirits arc and finished during my rewatch of Fairy Tail. Now, if you know from when I did my review of the Key to the Starry Sky arc a little while ago, I said that I enjoyed it and that I was going to get to the Eclipse Celestial Spirit arcs and see if I would change my tune like I did with Key to the Starry Sky arcs upon a revisit. Because with that arc, it was relatively okay at the beginning, decent setup, wasn't anything too crazy until the Rational Sace came in, and thus the plot really started to get going with a really great conclusion with a great emotional core. And I hold that to a good example as to how to do an anime canon arc to make you really feel like it is truly part of the canon, regardless of it's in the manga or not. Obviously it's canon, Mashima wrote it, and it is relatively referenced and explains some things for later on in the manga. But what did I think of the Eclipse Celestial Spirits arc after going back through the series and giving it a revisit? Did I enjoy it? Did I find it a lot more entertaining than I thought it was? Well, I didn't. I'm really sorry to everyone that liked this arc and still likes this arc. Good on you. But I, for the life of me, could not get into this arc. It was not a good arc. It wasn't well put together. The concept was great. Some of the designs were cool. Some of them were like, meh. Didn't really mesh with me, even for the fact that it's a Mashima Fairy Tail design. Most of the time, the designs are actually relatively good, even if they are relatively goofy, but I wasn't a big fan of like half the designs for the Eclipse Celestial Spirits. And the action in this arc was just not good whatsoever. People want to complain about the art and animation in 100 Years Quest anime in the Alderaan arc? You'd go rewatch this. I'd take what we got in Alderaan over what we got in this any day of the week. Outside of like one or two clean shots. But I'll leave that be for now. This arc just did not feel anything for me. It didn't really do anything that I found worth watching. Despite the fact that this was a really, really good idea. Before I go more in depth on this, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make on the channel and shows you want to see more. I know this came off as a bit negative, and I do want to give my own episodes involving my criticisms of Fairy Tail because while I love this series, there are things I wish that could have been done better or things that do give me a bit of gripe. This is definitely one of the bigger ones, so let's just jump right into things. So the Eclipse Celestial Spirit arc is a really great idea. The concept and baseline plot of this arc is that the Celestial Spirits, primarily the Zodiacs and by extension the Celestial Spirit King, were gravely affected by the dark energies of the Eclipse Gate, causing their personalities to shift and warp into something completely different, including their appearances and their attitudes and their personalities. And thus, they end up kind of dissolving their contracts with the Celestial Spirits, aka Lucy and Yukino, and go on about wanting freedom from humans, from the mistreatment of being spirits contracted to humans and not being tools and all that. And while when it comes to Yukino and Lucy, that's not how they view the spirits, how this goes about is that their memories were erased and kind of altered by this power. And this is an amazing concept because this is a direct consequence from the Eclipse Gate during the Dragon King Festival when Future Rogue ended up using time travel to bring those 7 dragons into the present. And so Yukino and Lucy had to use the Zodiacs to close the gate and eventually try to use the Zodiacs to destroy the gate. And they were exposed to a lot of the dark energies of the Eclipse Gate. And thus, everything that's happening with the Celestial Spirits is a direct consequence of the previous arc. And that's something that I will always get behind in any series. Fairy Tail has had some consequences depending on the arc for characters and their build-up and how things change roughly for the status quo. But the Eclipse Celestial Spirits arc, outside of the 7-year time skip after Tenro Island, is one of the biggest consequences of a previous arc that I can entail. And the thing is, it starts off with a bang. We get signs that things aren't right. Weather phenomena are changing. There's droughts, rain in certain specific areas, lightning storms. The human world just isn't fully right. Something is off. And Lucy, and then by extension Yukino, realize that something's up with their Celestial Spirits as they can't summon their Zodiac spirits. Until eventually all of Lucy's spirits appear and just jump Lucy and Natsu, as it shows that something's up with them, trying to get rid of Lucy. And I really like the start of this arc. Really big climactic setup that I can get behind 100%. And this also brings Princess Hisui into this arc. Gives her some more characterization and fleshing her out. That is one of the positives I'll give this arc. We get to see more of Hisui, but towards the end, outside of like 1 or 2 moments, she doesn't really do anything of significance, save for, I'm just going to say it now, our first instance of one of the strongest special wizard spells, Gottfried, which is above Uranometria, which Lucy doesn't even use until 100 Years Quest, so that's really cool. But other than that, she doesn't really do too much besides give us a way to kind of close the gates for the Celestial Spirits, give us exposition on what's going on, and start leading us in the directions on how to fix things. But that's really my main issue with Hisui in this arc. She acts more, the most of the time, as a plot device to help move things forward and help us get more answers, than us really having proper development and her getting into the action. Granted, she's not a fighter, so it makes sense why she would essentially be more so someone helping them along and getting the information that they need to solve this problem. It makes sense, but that's the extent of what's going on. Despite the fact that I actually kind of like the fact that she's going through with this, because she is, by extension, responsible for what's going on with the Celestial Spirits and why they're going crazy and just wrecking the Celestial Spirit world and all that. So I will give credit is due. I do have the nitpick of how she acts more of a plot device in this arc, but she does have some moments that I will give the flowers to. Now, I mentioned earlier that the Celestial Spirits want freedom, primarily the Zodiacs, and what they're trying to do is find this globe that allows them to perform the Libram ritual that will essentially cease their bindings to the Celestial Spirit world. But there is a stick to it, as there's only 12 days for the Zodiac Spirits to be alive for them to activate this ritual afterwards. So once they activate the ritual, they'll die after 12 days after achieving what they believe is true freedom. And that's obviously something that is in conflict with Lucy and Yukino, as how can you call that true freedom if you don't have time to really actually revel in it and actually experience life? Granted, the Celestial Spirits don't really need it, considering the fact that, one, they are kind of immortal. Then again, that could have been a really interesting concept to dive into, since they are the embodiments of the constellations and have been around for a long, long time. But by extension, with their contract with Lucy and Yukino, they technically do have full freedom. Yeah, they'll be summoned, but they like their Celestial Spirit wizards that they're contracted with, so it's not really an issue. So that's why they needed the altered memory thing. So, okay. Consequence of the gate, things are flipped, memories are wiped, but it is something that is brought up on later on with why they were so desperate to get the globe and to perform Libram, even if it means they die shortly afterwards. But now we get on to like the actual action in quotation marks, I'm going to say, for this arc, for a good chunk of this section, where Fairy Tail alongside Hisui and Yukino end up going off to face individual spirits in their own individual spaces that are created, that's between the human realm and the Celestial Spirit realm. Now, originally I was like, how can they fight the Celestial Spirits to such a degree? Because their spirits' powers are only as strong, or at least can reach a certain level, by their casters, their summoners' full-on magic reserves and power. But if they're in the Celestial world, theoretically they should be immensely more powerful, making it incredibly difficult for Fairy Tail to even do too much of them at this point if they're in their home realm. Which is why these pocket dimensions in between the Celestial Spirit realm and the actual world make sense, to the point where they're not utilizing the abilities that they realistically should have. But that aside, my issue is how the majority of these fights are handled, because my god is it boring and uneventful for the majority of them. Let me just get this out of the way. Elfman fighting Taurus would have been so much fun with Taurus's new gentlemanly persona, and Elfman being the rough and tumbled manly man that he is. But he wins by literally dripping his sweat on him, getting him to give up. That is it. Was that supposed to be funny? Probably for some people, but I found it incredibly anticlimactic, and it was just a dumb way to win a fight. You have two very brute force fighters, and you win by having one of them just not want to be sweat on? I'm like, come on. Gajil and Lily go off to fight the Gemini twins, but no, they're turned into squirrels. They get out, and shenanigans ensue, and then Gajil manages to kind of one-shot them after getting them to transform each other into a mongoose and a snake. And while that was relatively funny, it wasn't much of a fight, though I will say, the thing that made me chuckle, which is one of the only actual times where I actually laughed outside of one other moment in this section of the story, was that Gagio, when he was turned into an animal with the Gemini twins, didn't think to use his magic because they didn't think he was able to. That I will give credit to be actually funny for me. Levy had a trivia quiz with Capricorn. My god, does Capricorn not look cool at all? He just, oh my god, that super realistic goat head and that tiny body creeps me the fuck out. But yeah, this version of Capricorn is more interested in quizzes, and so a trivia game between him and Levy. That's fine, the concept's fine. But it's useless fairy tale trivia, and gave me one of the only other moments where I laughed, which established Michelle's actual name, kind of, that Lucy gave her when she was a kid, calling Michelle Gonzalez. That was hilarious and unexpected. I'm like, what the fuck? That was so stupid. But other than that, useless trivia. Ends up ending with Levy confessing, / not confessing, that she has a thing for Gagio, which everybody kind of figured by the time Grand Magic Games ended. It doesn't get fully confirmed until Taurus afterwards, but I'm like, you could have her say it if this is kind of implied, but then again, ship teasing, whatever, it's fine. But yeah, that part I didn't really care for. Yukino's fighting Libra, where they're just trying to balance each other and just clash with kicks. That's it. Again, really cool concept, by taking the fact that they have to maintain their balance in order to fight. That's really cool. Fight was uneventful and boring, and it wasn't really a fight that ended with this. Kana fights Scorpio, who is turned into a preteen nerd that's obsessed with card games. Makes up their own card game. Very boring. I don't understand it whatsoever. Also, fairy tale. I'm just gonna say this. This is if you wanted to create your own fairy tale card game and do like a backdoor pilot to kind of market it in a way that wouldn't be kind of marketing but is, this was perfect. If you wanted to make your own like cheesy fairy tale card game that probably wouldn't have been good anyway, this was the perfect opportunity to do so. But whatever, that is what it is, I guess. But yeah, this was not that interesting. I literally fell asleep halfway through this episode. Yeah, I shit you not, I fell asleep multiple times while watching these episodes. That's how bored I was. One fight I actually didn't really mind too much was Mira taking on Pisces. She absolutely demolishes them because they cannot work together whatsoever due to the mother Pisces essentially being a doting mother that says her child does no wrong and enabling his dumbass behavior, while the child is just a dumbass teen with too big of an ego that can't think straight and just thinks things should go his way. Makes sense why Mira would just absolutely decimate them in this instance because they cannot work together unlike their actual true counterparts. So yeah, and that and Mira lecturing them on like how families kind of are and should be. I'll give that. That's true to Mira's character. That's part of her entire being. So having her fight Pisces and then beating them makes sense, so I'll let it slide, but the fight wasn't all too eventful either. Wendy didn't even really fight Aquarius. It just ended off with some misunderstandings, her running away from Aquarius, Wendy acting uncharacteristically intense towards a child Aquarius, which I feel like Wendy of all characters would try and just maybe play along with. I want to fight Aquarius and just try and convince her to give up in a way that she would eventually do at the end of the episode, which only came into being with Aquarius's just full-on unawareness of her own mortality and danger. Despite her being a spirit, she probably would have been fine from a collapsing Ferris wheel, but it is what it is. But yeah, it's just Wendy running and hiding, not really doing anything. Natsu shows up, comedy ensues for a few instances, they save Aquarius from getting crushed, then Aquarius kind of gives up. Not really much to it. Also, there's this instance where Aquarius used a literal water dragon, and it's literally just a PowerPoint. The dragon isn't even animated. The water effect isn't even animated like it usually is whenever Aquarius uses her water. That at least limited, but it has no motion whatsoever. You don't buy the impact. Even crappy animation would give some sort of impact. This wasn't even animated. Which again, people who complain about 100 Years Quest, watch this arc. It is 10 times worse. And I'll get to one of the worst instances later on with one of the last couple of fights. Erza fighting Sagittarius was actually kind of fun. I won't lie. Having Sagittarius turn into a serious, chivalrous fighter and an actual centaur against Erza, it feels like something that really should have worked, and it did to an extent. It was more entertaining than these last batch of fights. Nothing too grandiose or special, but I didn't fall asleep watching it. Just Erza, it's hard for me not to be interested in anything if Urza's not on screen. She makes anything entertaining. I will not lie. Gray fights Cancer. That shit was hilarious because he legitimately had to do a dance battle against Cancer. And look, Gray dancing like Michael Jackson against a gay lobster man with an afro is never not going to be entertaining and funny. I will give the flowers to that. And Gray just dance fighting. That was funny. And then Gray realizing that he's just incredibly embarrassed afterwards. I just found that fun. Juvia versus Aries. Not really much of a fight. The idea that Aries is in a desert in a hot rod and acts like a delinquent, and Juvia just being completely dried out since there's no water anywhere. Okay, that could lead to an interesting fight. Leads to her somehow breaking Aries' water cooler and then using the hydration from that to actually beat Aries down. It wasn't super interesting. The idea was cool. It was just short and not too eventful in my opinion. But, upside of that, we did get, again, another instance that actually made me chuckle. Juvia having the most savage and cutting insult towards this version of Aries.
So are you and Loki still very close? Or did his interest disappear along with your double Ds?
Yeah, aside from that, that fight wasn't too special. The one that I consider probably the worst is Lucy against a Virgo. That was not a fight. That was Lucy, brief whip clash, then somehow in this space gets turned into being in a bikini alongside Virgo, as Virgo tries to torture her, break watermelon over her. Look, I don't mind fan service 90% of the time, 80% of the time for the most part, as long as it's not like overbearingly stupid and takes away from the plot. But this just felt like whoever was writing this episode just wanted to throw in every fetish they have under the sun. I mean, literally, the majority of this is Lucy running away in her bikini from Virgo, who was in a bikini top, and now is a sadist, with mayonnaise bottles slowly just trying to catch her like it's an old horror film. This was stupid, and I feel like we miss out on what could potentially be an emotional core for this arc, because the majority of these spirits are Lucy's. She has formed strong bonds with them. This is my biggest issue with this arc. Not just with the fact that this has so much potential and such a good idea, but the fact that all the spirits, 10 of them, are Lucy's, and she has such strong, deep connections with them, especially Aquarius, Loki, Virgo. These are the three spirits that she tends to default on 90% of the time, as they are her strongest fighters. And Taurus, but let's face it, Taurus is useless 90% of the time. You could have given us so much with the emotional gravity, and towards the end of these fights, when Lucy and Yukino, the realms are mashed together, that's an entirely different thing, we'll get into that, where she and Yukino tag team to take out Virgo and Libra at the same time using Uranometria as, first off, smart of them to be like, oh, let's take them out before they finish chanting that spell, otherwise we're toast. Meanwhile, they start chanting the spell and they're like, oh, let's go, while they're halfway through this chant, and then they get beat. And we try and get an emotional aspect of this, but it just doesn't land. It really doesn't. That sucks. It really sucks. And I'm going to make an entire video on the missed potential of this arc and how this could have been better. But my god, was there so much missed opportunity with this arc, and Lucy in particular. This is one of the things that Key to the Starry Sky got right. Lucy was an emotional core for this arc. It was a main contributor to the success of everything basically going right at the end of the arc. She was a major factor, key vocal point of the arc. As she developed, she had an emotional core to it, and a tie to one of the characters of this arc, and made you tear up at the end. This arc did not have that for whatever reason. I found nothing, which is a problem when Lucy is the main person tied to all these celestial spirits and is such a key part of all their lives. Like, what are we doing here? Lastly, there's Natsu versus Leo. It was fine, but I'm like, there was multiple instances of just reusing the exact same clash in animation and effect over and over again when they would clash, and just like not intriguing whatsoever. Also, Leo somehow being able to use darkness to absorb Natsu's flames, to absorb the light from his flames and absorb Natsu's flames, then goes on to say that his darkness is darkness flames, then Natsu eating it and then taking out Leo. I'm like, okay, I mean, I like seeing Black Flame Dragon mode, that's pretty cool, but at the end of the day, that just felt like a plot contrivance. Granted, I know Dragon Slayers can eat multiple forms of magic, but they can't always agree with them. Some of them can end up affecting them by giving them hybrid forms. But this shouldn't really be the case in this instance. And Leo all of a sudden having dark flames, I mean, you could say that his darkness merged with Natsu's flames, creating it, so there's that, but I'm like, oh, okay. Also, Natsu gets affected by darkness, which nerfs him for a good chunk of these next few episodes, which I felt like was kind of unnecessary. Added a bit extra fluff, but whatever. But one of the things I liked about this arc was the 13th Celestial Spirit actually getting time to shine and showcase their character. The Snake Charmer of Fugas, I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, was a really cool twist surprise villain, because she showed up like, oh right, I forgot there's supposed to be a 13th spirit, which again, never used in the majority of Fairy Tail after its one instance in Grand Magic Games is never utilized again. This is a great way to introduce her, and it adds more to the lore behind her character, her existence, and by extension the Celestial Spirit King, as she's stated to be the shadow of the Spirit King. And the reason why the 12 Zodiac Spirits wanted to perform the Librum ritual, wanted to be free, was because the Celestial Spirit King was turned into the Celestial Spirit Beast, got affected by the Eclipse's dark magic, and was going rampant, wanting to devour the Celestial Spirit world and destroy it, and wanted to absorb the Zodiac Spirits as well. And so, Fugas wanted to use the Librum to help draw in the power of the Celestial Spirits, the Zodiacs, to help with the solidifying of the Celestial Spirit Beast, make him stronger, and have him devour them. And even go so far as to set things up to bring them into these worlds that she created, to set up everything for the gates for the Zodiacs to be closed, to make it easier for the Librum, for the Celestial Spirit Beast now that it's called, to actually absorb them and utilize them for power. Going crazy and ballistic. That was cool. It showcased that there was meaning behind a lot of these actions, and it recontextualizes what I thought of this arc. That's great. That's a great twist villain. That's a great motivation and manipulation for these 12 Zodiac Spirits and their twisted personalities and memory loss. That's great. I found that really cool and engaging. And heck, I even found the Fugas fight with Natsu to be actually pretty enjoyable. Then we got Gottfried, where they had to destroy the globe, while Natsu manages to take down Fugas as well, while the rest of the Fairy Tail members, after being revealed that these spaces are within Fugas herself, just have to break themselves out from the inside out. That was a team effort, and I kind of enjoyed it. I was told that this arc was more of a world-building aspect, and while I do see that, it didn't feel as fleshed out as it should have been. Fugas is the best part of it, and to extent stuff with the Librum, and I'll get to that once I reach the end of this video. But Fugas, really cool twist villain. I liked her motivation. She actually felt threatening towards the end. Her sexy nurse shtick I wasn't great with, but it is what it is, I guess. I don't know, I guess Sister Ivory spoiled me from Eden Zero, but let's move on. After she's beat, the Celestial Spirit King Beast is going rampant in the actual Celestial world, so Team Fairy Tail have to go there, deal with it. He somehow has the ability to turn people into constellations, wipes out all their forces, where at the end it's just Natsu, Lucy, Happy, Erza, Gray, and Gajiel left standing to take on the Celestial Spirit Beast, also Yukino and Arcadios. But this guy is incredibly powerful, not really doing anything to it. He's sucking things in, devouring them, and this is something that's really cool, but also a problem I kind of have with it, but that could be a nitpick on my end, is how, despite them teaming up, and it is a team effort on the outside to deal as much damage to the Celestial Spirit Beast as possible, they managed to crack him, deal actual damage to him multiple times. Granted, it doesn't seem to be anything too major, but it does seem like they shouldn't be able to harm a godlike being like the Celestial Spirit Beast at this point of the story. It feels way too soon for something this high stakes. Granted, Natsu, after just diving headfirst into the belly of the Celestial Spirit Beast, goes and finds the actual Celestial Spirit King somehow, being dragged in by chains manifested by the Eclipse Spirits into the literal stomach acid of the Celestial Spirit Beast that has kind of like its own little universe inside whatever. And Natsu can't really break the chains on his own, so he has the genius idea to eat the stomach acid of the Celestial Spirit Beast for power, because it's similar to the darkness that he used earlier that helped merge two of the realms that Fugas created, which I told you I'd get back to that. He used his dark flames to merge, to smash those things together to help Yukino and Lucy team up, get things out of that world, yeah, whatever, it's fine. But he like ate this other substance that I don't even think he should gain power from, and then gets the power to break the chains, which ends up freeing the Celestial Spirit King, and then everything goes back to normal, all hunky-dory like nothing ever happened. Yeah, the spirit world goes back to normal the second the beast lets go the Celestial Spirit King. Everything goes back to normal. The spirits are back to who they truly are. The Celestial Spirit King is back to who they truly are. But they also have amnesia. They have no idea what happened while they were the Eclipse spirits. The Celestial Spirit King is like, strange, I feel like something happened, but I can't quite remember. All I know is that we caused you all a great deal of trouble. And I'm like, no shit. This also ties into the fact that there are records of the Libram, how the Celestial Spirits will die after 12 days after using this ritual. I'm like, this highly implies that this has happened before, a long time ago. This could end up being explained even further and elaborated on if we really had the time. And I feel like if Masha wrote this arc, he probably would have added a bit more just to make things make a bit more sense. This implies that there were previous celestial spirits that wanted freedom, performed this ritual, and then died after 12 days. Or there's also, and if that's the case, were they zodiac spirits? Were they baseline celestial spirits that were unhappy? We don't know. You could also go into the fact that perhaps this was the zodiac spirits and the celestial spirit king again. But then again, if they died after 12 days, after permanent living room, how do we still have these zodiac spirits? Are they reborn? There's still things that we don't fully know. And it just feels like it is a hole that is dug ever deeper with the existence of the living room without it being properly explained as to how people know this information and how it was created. Because this implies that this has happened before. And here's the thing, if this happened before and they failed, or they reworked the consequences, if this is similar to the Eclipse thing where they lost their memories, then it just feels like at the end of the day that this is just another anime filler arc that is inconsequential. Yeah, there's cool stuff with the Fugas, additional stuff with the Celestial Spirits, but at the end of the day, the biggest problem I have with this arc, outside of Lucy not being a true emotional core and help driving the plot with her motivations and her connections with her spirits, and not being a key reason as to why this arc ended and they succeeded, like with Key to the Starry Star, since she was also a focal point of that arc, is that this entire arc meant nothing. Literally, there were no consequences after this arc. This arc was a direct consequence of the Eclipse, which would be really cool if there was some lingering things from what happened with the Zodiac Spirits help lead into some development for Lucy and some emotional connection. There's a scene where she gets her key back from Aquarius, where she's like, I wish I remembered me causing you all that trouble, and this is supposed to be some emotional moment, but it doesn't. It doesn't hit. And I hate it, because I love this series. Its emotional beats are what really make me love this series so much. And this arc just does not have that. And it means nothing at the end of the day because it's never referenced in the rest of the fairy tale. It's never a consequence of the actions, unlike Key to the Starry Sky arc, which explains why there's so few celestial spirit wizards and why Grand Magic Games required Yukino and Lucy and kind of Hisui to an extent. But no, this just puts it under a literal filler arc that could just be completely avoided, and it would change nothing. I hate being so negative. I really do. I wanted to like this arc. It started out strong. The surprise villain with Fugas, her being the main reason all this shit is going on, and we could have avoided so much if she didn't interfere, was great. I like that. The bits of additional lore for the Celestial Spirit world and Celestial Spirits was a cool addition. But the more you dig into it, you have to wonder how all this information exists in the first place. And also, the fact this arc meant nothing at the end of the day because there is no character growth for anybody involved. And there is no consequences. It's, like I said, filler in general, where it has no bearings on the overall plot of the entire series in general. And outside of it being so goddamn boring for the majority of it, that is its gravest sin. It not mattering at all in the long run. And it's so disappointing. It really is. And I really wish that we actually got Mashima to add more to fill things out for this arc, even despite just the rough outlining concept for this arc and the character designs. Yeah, I didn't want to be negative, but this video ended up being negative and larger than the Key to the Starry Sky arc because I had so many complaints with it. And so much I wanted to say this time, but I'm sorry. for not liking this arc and having so many problems with it. Again, if you like it, that's great, but I did not. I found it, like I said, boring, inconsequential, mattered to nobody at the end of the day, and was the very definition of filler. But let me know how you guys feel in the comment section down below. Was I too hard on this arc? Was I being a bit too negative? Was I going in with too big of a negative mindset to really appreciate it as much as it should be? What did you guys like about this arc? What did you not like about this arc? Let me know in the comment section down below. And again, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. Now, with all that said and done, I hope you all have an awesome day. You know, I'm not going to lie, at the end of things, I prefer Masochist Virgo over Sadist Virgo, more to the fact that while I could go either way, I kind of find Masochist Virgo to be a lot more fun.